I grew up in a home where there was a lot of creativity and love. My mom is a pastor. My dad is also a man of God.
Where did you grow up?
Born, bred and buttered in Lagos, Surulere precisely.
Why do you call yourself creative entrepreneur?
In whatever I'm doing, value comes in. I started to try my hands around very creative stuff. As at the age of 2, 3, I made my first artwork. As a young man, creating a piece and someone appreciating it gave me an insight into how valuable things that we create with our hands are. It was really tough to box me, sort of. That's why the creative entrepreneur word came up.
When was your first startup?
I started to make t-shirts really in school. Started to delve into fashion a bit. That started to bring me money, and it made me understand that okay, there's money in this thing. So I started to push further. That's how my brand started. I figured that fashion wasn't really my destination. 2017, I started with running a media house. I'll just do graphics, then a little bit of web development, doing a little bit of animation. That built what is known as TNT Media Africa today. TNT in itself means the new trend. Creativity lives in my blood.
Hello. You keep coming back to watch our video, and that means the word to us. But here is the thing. 96.6% of you that come back here every week to watch us haven't yet hit the subscribe button, and that leaves us with just 3.4% of people. We pour our hearts into this. We try to create something special. We try to make sure every story, every moment is being created in a very, very important way that tells a story about ourselves the way we want it to be told. And please, by just hitting the subscribe button, you're doing us a huge favor. And on that note, I can make a promise to you that this show is only going to get better. The guests are only going to improve, and the overall quality is going to also improve by just doing one thing for me. As you come back to watch, just hit the subscribe button and share to a friend to also subscribe. It means the world to us as you do that. And hey, if there's something you need to tell us that we are not doing, just drop a comment or just drop a DM. We are always open, and please, we'll be looking forward to seeing you back every week. Thank you. The stories we tell ourselves have a way of quickly becoming our reality, and that's why we started Talks About You, a story about self. And on today's episode, I'm going to be speaking to a very interesting young man. I call him a very interesting young man because I'm sure it's not all of us that have 3 startups at 27. And those are the things I like to find out today. I'm talking to other person than Tunde Tunde TNT.
I'm actually 23.
If you're 23, then that makes this more interesting. Welcome. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank
it means the world to me and my team. Thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I like us to start from the beginning because that's what we do at Talks About You. We just want to understand how everything builds up to where it is. If I was a fly in the house when you were growing up that was constantly coming, what are the things I'm going to hear? What are the things I'm going to pick up?
If you're a fly. Actually, so I grew up in a home where there was a lot of, creativity and love. So my father actually happens to be a fine artist by profession, and my mom is a fashion designer. So, you'd have heard a lot of creative conversations going on. My mom is actually a pastor also. My dad is also a very worded man of God. So you have heard a lot of, talks around, the church, the gospel. Basically, my home was a very lively home. It was a home filled with love. I used to say a lot that when I was growing up, I celebrated every of my birthdays, like from age 1 till 10. The reason why I can remember one is because I saw pictures. It's not like I had a vivid memory, but I have a very photographic memory. So I remember, like from when I was 3, 4, 5, I could remember those experiences a bit, And so you would have heard a lot about love, a lot about God, a lot about creative stuff. My mom used to do a lot of, fashion outfits and stuff. She did like very nice stuff, people's wedding dresses, and so sometimes she'll bring those dresses home, and we'll be helping her to do one bidding or the other. So most likely those kind of conversations, yeah.
So, if love was the earliest context of you as a person, when did you think, oh, this is going to be sustainable for me to be a loving person and go into the things you went into?
I think some things are inbuilt. So I'm a student of psychology also, and so you would know that there are two ways we grow. It's either from um, innate, things that you took from your parents based on biology, or things that you learn from your environment. So growing up in that kind of home, mind you also to note that my home was also a very open home. So I had a lot of family members, neighbors, always coming around. So there was always a thing for people. There was always a thing for doing things for people, doing things for for a greater cause than self. So definitely influenced so many things I did as a person. It has influenced so many things, I am today, and that really bet the course of my life.
Okay. Since we're talking about the birth of the course, where did you grow up?
I grew up born, bred, and buttered in Lagos. Born, bred, and buttered in Lagos, Surulere precisely.
Okay. That speaks to the style.
Really?
Okay.
Anyways, yeah, I grew up in Surulere, the art of Surulere, yeah.
You went on to school.
So, schooling, I had my early days in Lagos, but secondary, I went to Abeokuta Grammar School, majorly because I'm from Abeokuta. So I remember when I was younger, my parents, I actually had admission at King's College, and I was like, no, I wanted to go to Abeokuta. I've been to Abeokuta at that time, but I wanted to experience what home felt like, as a young man. I didn't even know what was driving me. I just wanted to say, I wanted to go back home, I wanted to go to my mom, and my Yoruba was not so strong. Up until now, it's not that strong, but that was the factor that I wanted to go back to Abeokuta, I wanted to stay, but essentially, and then I got some little info about what Abeokuta Grammar School was, some legends that had gone to Abeokuta Grammar School. My great grandfather at the time, I think Fela Anikulapo Kuti at the time, and so many other people. So I felt like, oh, maybe let's do this. So I went to Abeokuta Grammar School for secondary, and then I finally ended up in Obafemi Awolowo University for my university days. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on your LinkedIn landing page for hours yesterday, just doing my research for this. I like one word you used there. You said creative entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
That's bold.
Yeah,
because when I look at the meaning of entrepreneurship, it's bringing value,
mm-hmm.
and creativity is like value on its own.
Yeah.
But one thing about creativity that is kind of different from entrepreneurship for us is the fact that, for me, don't let me say for us, is the fact that act is very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
You can create value in your act, and people still not like it because it's subjective.
Yeah.
People create good music and people don't vibe to it.
Yeah.
Not like the music is bad. It's just subjective. So when you say you're a creative entrepreneur, the goal of every entrepreneur, because I'm an entrepreneur myself, is to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal of every creative is to create value.
Exactly.
So why do you call yourself that? That's just what I'm trying to get to.
So I love the analogy you gave and some of the things you said. It's very simple. It's if there's no value, there's no money. Look at the biggest brands in the world. They are creating value. And so as a young man, like I said, I grew up in a creative home. So I started to try my hands around very creative stuff. As at the age of 2, 3, I think I made my first artwork, and I'll send you the picture so you can show it on this on this later. I made my first creative artwork. It was just me playing in my dad's studio, and I'm painting stuff. And trust me, if I was probably in a foreign land where art was more appreciated, that would have probably been a gold mine today. So I started to do stuff like that. And so growing up, into primary school, I one day just created a piece. It was me and my friend. We did this artwork where we drew a man on a boat. He was paddling, and so my friend put it up in his sitting room, so we went to my dad's studio, picked up some frames and some glasses, cut it, pieced it out and put it up in his room. And someone came into the house one day and bought it. Excuse me. Someone came into the house one day and bought that piece. Yes, for 100 naira. I remember vividly.
100 naira was a lot of money.
It was a lot, actually, but yeah, it was. Could have been a lot. And so I was inspired that, what? So these things, of course, I knew that my dad used to sell his artwork, but as a young man, creating a piece and someone saying, appreciating it, gave me an insight into how valuable the things that we create with our hands are. And so because of where I was, I had a lot of passion for doing creative stuff. So I was on a roller coaster. I wanted to try photography. I was acting at some points. I wanted to do graphics, and I started to pick up graphic designing. I would design every single thing around me. So I see an art, a flyer, a calendar, I'll try to recreate it without anybody teaching me. I mean, thankfully, all the Gen Zs nowadays, or younger generation, they have they have the internet.
Yeah. They changed the lock on us.
My Gen Zs, I'm part of them. We have the internet nowadays, to learn stuff. But we didn't have internet back in the day. So what I used to do is I started designing with CorelDRAW 5 precisely. So I'll open up the software and I'll click on that's one thing about, some of these softwares, they are self-explanatory. And the remaining part of it is now where your own creative insights come in. So I can, like they say, there's no one route to the market. There's no rule in creativity, as it were. So someone could do something in a particular way and I could do it in another particular way, but we achieve the same result. So I started to just try my hands on every single tool on the software, and that's how I learned. And I started to build my crafts. I started to do things. I was opportune to have like people around me also that fueled that passion. So I didn't have people that were saying, "Oh, don't do this, don't do that." And so I had the opportunity to always create. Went on into university. I remember in school, I created a piece called I Rep Obawa University. It was the first of the kind at the time, and it was trending in school. At this time, social media started to come into play, BBM, so we're putting it on BlackBerry.
BlackBerry status.
Yeah, so I had a BlackBerry Bold one then, and I put it up, and a lot of my friends saw it. Oh, this is cool. And that's really how, the journey started. And I started trying so many things, I started because of the creativity, and then me already understanding that in whatever I'm doing, value comes in, and it was really tough to box me, sort of. That's why the creative entrepreneur word came up, because I figured that at some point people started to miss my identity, sort of, so people started to think, oh, is he a photographer? But I didn't want to be boxed. Like, is he
because that's a genius way of describing oneself. When I saw it, I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's how that came about, really.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what I could actually get from all that you said is, you understand that there's supposed to be a business side to this creativity too.
Absolutely.
Because when I was going through your LinkedIn, I was able to figure that out. Like, okay, aside, as long as the creativity stands, you want the business to stand
absolutely
on the other side of it too. So that's going to bring me to what I want to understand. When was your first startup, or when did you think, oh, I can start up something?
Yeah, so it takes me back to, like I said, when I was in uni. And I like to be very open with my stories. So I started to make T-shirts really in school and started to make money. And at that point, I think that was a mistake I made, as a child that had parents, because the moment my parents had this sniff that this boy is already making money, they stopped sending me money. So I started to pay my bills myself, and I started to...
It was an important lesson for every man should learn.
It was because it made me self-independent. It made me self-conscious that, okay, I have things that I can, survive myself, and so I started to make departmental T-shirts, I started to delve into fashion a bit, I was opportunity to work in a lot of society organizations per se, when I was in school, and so that started to bring me money. Right, that started to bring me some sort of value, and it made me understand that, okay, there's money in this thing, so I started to push further, and that was when we started something called House of TNT. So House of TNT that's how my brand started, right? So it was a couple of my friends coming together and saying, you know what, let's do fashion, but in a different way. So we wanted to be creative about it. If you look at a lot of the things I did when I was in school, so I was into fashion, more into fashion. But I had this media side, I had that creative graphic side, that I didn't want to let go. So I was pushing both. So I started to do those creative T-shirts, delved into creative pieces with dresses. Back then, I did a collection called Love Affair. So it was a story with my fashion pieces, that got featured on Bella Nigeria. There was something called Style Vitae. I think they are still existing. It was big then, though. It was a fashion blog. A lot of blogs, picked it up. And it was pretty much a story. I was in uni then. It was a story of a couple, a guy and a girl, but it was demonstrated with fashion pieces, from how they met, how they got married, and all of those things. So that's really how I came into a full realization of, okay, this is money, and then we started the fashion brand. But fashion, I figured that fashion wasn't really my destination, so I started.
How did you figure that?
So I was doing female pieces, and I was doing a bit of male. So I had a partner. He was more of the male guy. I was more the female guy. And so I figured that for me, basically, it wasn't a thing of, where should we go next or what should I do next? It was more of a thing of, it was becoming too, I won't say complicated, but I didn't find the full satisfaction in it, as it were, because that's not where I was supposed to be. So I wasn't fulfilled, sort of.
You're not feeling.
I wasn't feeling fulfilled, at the point, even though it was part of the expressions, I had, but I wasn't feeling very fulfilled. So, in as much as I was able to push all that creativity into it, did fashion shows. I was even organizing. I had a fashion show called the Lagos Wardrobe and Exhibition. Organized it for 3 years. It was big. We bring fashion designers, young fashion designers together, because we realized that they didn't have opportunities to showcase their pieces if you didn't have the Lagos Fashion Design Week or any other big fashion design week. As a young designer, nowhere to showcase. So I did all of that, but I still wasn't finding that sort of like fulfillment, sort of, so I started to trickle down on fashion a bit, even though I still, I'm still a fashionable guy, as you can see.
Very fashionable. Very fashionable. Say that again.
As you can see, I still do stuff around fashion, but I dropped it as a business. So I've faced media full on. And
what year did you face media full on?
I think this was 2016, 2017.
Yeah, that's quite early.
Yeah, it was 2017. And so I started with running a media house. I was just doing graphics then, doing a little bit of web development, doing a little bit of animation, and started to build the business. And that built, what is known as TNT Media Africa today.
Okay, since we are on TNT Media Africa already, what does it mean to you? When I know it means different things to we from the outside, but what does TNT Media means to you?
So it is. I find that I'm a very creative person, and so creativity sort of like lives in my blood. It's an expression of
your being,
of my being. So basically, I love to create a lot. So I find that. When I'm not creating, it bothers me. Like when I'm not doing something. So I just finished a project recently. We did, a creative and digital marketing for an event. And so I find that especially when you have events and it's rounding up. So it was a 2-day event, finished on Sunday. I started to feel this burden that, okay, what next? What am I going to do next? And I was telling my wife that I'm just feeling one type of way. So I find that, I feel like it's really an expression. It's an expression of my being. TNT in itself means the new trend. So I find that what I always try to do is always be at the forefront of creating, things that people are not really always familiar with. Even though sometimes it seems because there's really nothing new under the sun, but there's always a reinvention of what has existed before. So that's really what TNT means to me.
Yeah, you have an alternate way of expressing from everything you said. You have an alternate way of expressing everything, of expressing yourself in terms of fashion, in terms of religion, and that brings me to street church. Great. It's a very alternate way of. Like, okay, let me put it this way. Okay. There are traditional Christians in Nigeria, like we know, and there are alternate Christians like us. I don't like to say alternate.
I'm struggling with that word.
I don't like to say, I don't want to say alternate too. I've been looking for a word since yesterday while I was doing this, but I can't seem to really get something that will.
Because I'm also traditional, very, very traditional. I grew up in.
A traditional Christian will not. Today, let's be realistic. Okay, traditional Christian will not have. What was that thing on?
Yeah.
So
I get that, and that's why I even wore it. It's because it's an identity, or like I said, of who we are.
Yeah.
And so I don't like to use the word alternate, and because there's always been that bridge between who, especially creatives, and you find out I was in a gathering. I was speaking. There was something that happened last year for there was a celebration of 70 years of music, and so we're talking about Christian music and how it has evolved. And I find that creatives always feel that block away from the church, and that's why you find that there's this conversation of artists,
starting in the church,
starting in the church, and then ending up outside, as it were,
circular,
circular and all of that. And it's because for a very long time, there's a certain way that there has been a block between who a creative person is, or a creative, as we term it to be, someone that is into fashion, that is into, stuff that we do, creative stuff. And so because of that bridge, you find that a lot of expressions are supposed to exist within the confined. And one of my favorite Bible verses in Exodus 35, how God blessed the children of Israel with creative gifts, to create stuff with their hands. God is a very creative God. I tell people a lot of times, how you look at the rainbows, how you look at the sky, the sunset sometimes, and think
landscapes,
that the landscape of this world, the wonders of the world, and think that it just happened by luck. It was a supreme being.
It was intentional.
And so as human beings, that's what we express. That's the expression of our being. The expression of our being is the expression of God. And so because that block has always been there, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is bridging that gap. And so that's one of the reasons why Street Church was.
Yeah, we're still going to talk about Street Church. We're just trying to talk about bridging the gap. When we're talking about traditional Christian and people that are like on the side of Street Church, let's use it for the sake of context and not going back and forth. I think people cannot hold two truths in Nigeria. I keep saying it. Nigerians find it very difficult to hold two truths, to actually know that two truths can actually coexist. And I think that's the problem we have in the church. Like, people think there's only one way to do things.
Yeah. So, I don't think there can be two truths, personally.
That's a very interesting one. And I think it's possible for us to be able to hold two truths.
So, I think that is just perspective, to be honest.
Okay.
I think it's perspective. I think there's always one established truth.
Okay.
And there are so many references, but I feel like there are different perspectives, and that's where we miss it, most times. So in the case of, let me say, in the case of traditional, I don't like to use all these words and terms, but in terms of what we see
from
as
the founder of Street Church. Wow, that's interesting.
No, I don't like to use terms, so, but
okay.
In the case of what we see as what the church is today, there are elements of what has existed, and so there's always a standard. In the Bible, there are standards that God has set in place that man cannot shake. And that's why one of the strongest, Bible verses is when God says that let your yes be your yes. Is one truth, but there are different perspectives to, like I said earlier, that there's no one route to the market. So there are different perspectives to how things can be done.
Okay, talking about different perspectives to how things can be done, and we're still on Street Church. What was the idea behind it when you wanted to start?
So it was founded by my friend, actually, Icon Orelua. And, I remember when we started, he came from a place of, and that's one beautiful thing about God, right? He came from a place of personal relationship with God. Personal conviction. So we exist in a time where technology has gone as wild as you can think about.
I keep saying it. Nothing has blown up like the internet.
Exactly. And so the references that we have held for over 2,000 years, from the Bible, still, extremely relevant. But the perspective nowadays are different. So, it came from a place of, and that's how the journey of life is. We recently were talking about it, myself and Icon, and we found out that in 2014, he tweeted something about how collaboration will change Africa. And in 2014, around the same time, I tweeted something about how creativity, is the key to changing Africa. And so it was really bringing those two things together, collaboration and creativity. And that's how we ventured into street church. It was him having that personal conviction of, what, I want to see the Bible from a cultural perspective. I want to see it from the lens of what I see in my everyday activity, life. Like the Bible says, if you have faith like a mustard seed, I don't know what a mustard seed looks like. None of us, I don't know, has anybody seen mustard seed before? I'm not sure.
People who don't go Israel.
But I know what agbalumo seed is.
Yes.
So the reference, is clear to me that if I have faith like an agbalumo seed, it's telling me how tiny my faith needs to be, to be able to exercise or experience God's faithfulness in my life. And so that context came about, and he started to write stuff. And then I started to see them, and I'm like, guy, this thing is really powerful. You know what? We can actually recreate this thing to become a thing. I started to speak to him about it. It was like, I wasn't going very far. I was like, let's write a pidgin Bible. Let's do what today.
So there's no pidgin translation for the
so
Bible?
there is pidgin translations, but like I said, context is very different.
So you guys want to write
so
it
when
in
it's write in a different context. Using our everyday slang like we currently do.
Yeah.
And so he started to do it from a place of personal, like I said, conviction. And me, I was seeing it, and I started to talk to him about it. And let's go bigger on this thing. And so in 2021, we came together, put out the first design. First post quote was Gbogbo Alamaje breakfast. At the time, that was like a trending slang. There was a video of a popular, popular Yoruba actor, that piece was pieced out of from that said Gbogbo Alamaje breakfast. And if you look at the context of that conversation, he said Gbogbo Alamaje breakfast, asiko.
So that different timing.
Different timing, and so he referenced the Bible verse in Habakkuk 2:3 that says, for the vision is for an appointed time, though it might tarry, it will surely still happen. So if I can use my breakfast at 9, my life, people, and it's so strong that if people actually meditate on these things, you get a sweeter revelation. So somebody may have seen, the vision may tarry for.
I'm not be interested.
It doesn't really understand it. But when you hear Gbogbo breakfast, that somebody eats their breakfast at 8 a.m., somebody eats at 9, somebody eats at 10, somebody eats at 11, somebody eats at 1 p.m. And still calls it breakfast.
Yeah,
but
just
I have
context.
a context of it, and I can relate it to so many areas of my life. I might not have got married at 25 like all my friends are, but a time will surely come. I remember being in uni, and we had a lot of Yahoo boys in quotes, around where I used to stay. And a friend of mine, I remember one day we were sitting, popular guys now, I wouldn't mention their names, but we were sitting in front of the hostel, and we looked at this guy. They were driving out with their Benz and their cars and stuff, and the guy was like, these guys built the Bugaos, And I told him, I said, now it's for their pocket. To me, in this life, I'll drive my car, I'll drive my Benz,
and
I'll buy my house, I'll become somebody, like I'll achieve these things. It's just timing. It's just timing. Like, life is in phases, men are in sizes. So what's the rush for? And so if you have a deeper context to, like, having that slang now, play around it, and then you can equate it to the Bible. Because one of the things that the slang does is, there's this phenomenon trend now in digital marketing called the hook. One of the things it does is to hook you and say, okay,
I'm going to draw you in.
This person says Gbogbo Alamaje breakfast. Let me go and see what this Bible actually says. And you, in your mind, you're even trying to look for maybe how it's not correct, but the more you read it, the more you're getting
different angles,
angles to it. And so that was really how street church was
started, and that was really the idea behind it.
That was the big idea, but it has blossomed into so many things now.
Yeah, and those are the conversations I want to have around it, because perspective that street church prioritizes entertainment over spirituality. And sitting with you here today, I can see that like you deep in your spirit, because a man is supposed to be in body, spirit, and being.
Absolutely.
And I can say that you know God for who He is. You don't need anybody to tell you about God. So, what do you think about that perspective?
That's what I don't even know who thinks like that. And really, that's what it is.
perspective.
Is the art. Everything that happens on the surface of the earth is about your heart. Like, where's your heart? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, we didn't start Street Church because we just wanted to entertain ourselves. It was from a personal conviction. This was somebody that, at the time, my friend was almost, it was in a, when sometimes creative journey, I've made a lot of creatives where they almost make you want to feel like God doesn't exist. Those kind of conversations, and it was on that kind of path, where he was already questioning deep. So many things. So this is somebody that came from a deep place of conviction, and so people don't just, people have ulterior motives, they're in every society, you always find a bad egg.
But our society we go find more
crates of eggs.
Yeah, you go find them.
But at the end of the day, right, the conversation is about the art. So I don't think that, people will be very surprised at who God is. I feel like most times we don't really sit down, to discuss with the spirit, whether it's, depending on the kind of spirit you have, maybe it's holy or not. But if you have the Holy Spirit,
okay.
You sit down and meditate and discuss, you would have a better revelation of who God is. God doesn't frown. I just tell people that, why is it that the first recorded miracle in the Bible was Jesus Christ at a wedding party? It was not in church. It wasn't in a synagogue. It wasn't in a church building, as it were. It was at a party. That shows you the
importance.
Not even importance alone, but the dexterity of who God is. God is telling you that you can find solace in every little things. 1 Corinthians, sorry that I'm quoting, but I'm not sorry.
No, that's why we are here.
Sorry, but I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
1 Corinthians, I think around 13:31, Paul was saying how he doesn't frown against, enjoying yourself. God doesn't frown against enjoying yourself. The important thing is, I think, and also in Colossians, 13 thereabouts, where God was saying that, John actually was saying, one of the apostles was saying that whatever you do it unto God. Whether you're working for human beings, whatever you're doing. I used to say when I was younger, and I'd not even read the Bible to that extent, that the woman that sells pepper to you in the market is adding value to you, because in a way that's your source of
being able to feed,
and so she's giving you value. And so if she has the mindset that she's doing this thing on, and it's in the Bible, you can open it, 1 Corinthians 13, Colossians 13 thereabouts, that whatever you find yourself doing, do it as unto God, even if you are serving humans. And that's why you see a reference of the Bible a lot, especially in the Old Testament, where Joseph, Saul, the relationship between Saul and David, this were what we see today as secular or worldly activities, where countries and nations were fighting, but God used a young man like David. Based on the relationship, he had so many lessons to learn from the Bible. It's just that people are just stuck in the religion of going to church, listening to one pastor, but people forget to study their Bible.
Yeah, people forget to have a personal
relationship with God.
And so Street Church is like trying to be a hook to draw them back to God.
Bless you. So we're not standing as a church. Entertainment is a hook, to be honest. Entertainment is something that we see that drives our everyday activity.
I don't think people are not in their right to think people can stand as a church. 5,000 members in the last 2 years or 3 years is crazy numbers. I'm not sure.
5,000 members. 5,000 members of what?
Like 5,000. You people have as much as 5,000 following. 500,000. Sorry, 500,000 members. Not 5,000. Sorry, 500,000. My bad.
Right, church.
500,000. 500,000.
Fine, it's all right.
So 500,000 members is enough for people to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like you people can become a church. Like you people are serious threats to churches. So I understand where that is coming from.
I beg you.
Like yes, if you decide that tomorrow I'm Pastor Tunde, people will come. Like we have people.
I'm just a pencil in the hand of the Creator.
We are all pencils. We are all pencils in the hand of the Creator.
So it's the world we live in now. People need to get used to it. It's just like, and that's why God is. I used to say the Lord, God has a great sense of humor. He made us see during COVID that all this, and the Bible says it. It's real that people don't give references to it. The Bible says that He no longer dwell. He no longer wants to dwell in houses that are made by men. He wants to dwell in our hearts. So he wants seeking people that worship him in spirit and in truth. And so you find that God doesn't want to you all this gathering. Yes, they are good. There's a place of gathering, which is important, because the Bible also references that we should not forsake the gathering of one another. So, but at the end of the day, He wants us to have a relationship with Him. And COVID showed us expressly, like we could not gather. But now, people that even believe in social media as a tool for church, now almost every other day you see a pastor online doing a live, doing a YouTube session, doing a prayer session, doing all of these things.
I just think the church is very. Sorry for cutting. I genuinely think the church is very powerful, because when you're speaking about the online this thing now, because I was looking at YouTube in 2024, the person that made the most money in Nigeria is a pastor. 2023, the biggest podcast in Nigeria is a pastor. So I understand the power of social media and God showing us, like, He can really express Himself, the dexterity of God, like you said, anywhere. So, my next question is: do you people have plans, like not just bridging the gap? Do you have plans of making it become like a proper
church? No. I mean,
not for now.
I don't think it will ever be.
So you don't want to be a pastor?
No, it's not about being a pastor or not. I don't think conversation about being a pastor. It's understanding what your vision is and what you have been called for to do. And that's why.
So it's just to be the gap.
Everybody has their role to play. There's just like your entire being as a person. Your hand plays its role. Your hand cannot be playing the role of your ear or the role of your mouth, as it were. So we all have our roles to play. We are not at the moment, except because God unfolds Himself to you every day. Nobody can know Him finish, But for now, we're just an expression, trying to bridge that gap and also creating creative avenues for people to express themselves. Music is a very powerful tool. I was reading my Bible a couple of days ago, and when the king Saul was sick, essentially the Bible was saying he was depressed. A message came to him that there's a young man, which was David, that could play the harp, and that so anytime he plays the harp, the sickness would leave him. That's how powerful music is. I know you see a lot of people. There's what they call Afro depression today. there's so many, and there's what they call Afro. And so it's just really the power of music. So music is a tool that. What we do most times in the church, we abandon the tools and say it's devilish. But it's God. Imagine God that has given us these tools, and we then say, "Oh, these tools are devilish."
Because we don't know how to use it.
We don't understand it. And so, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to
bring understanding.
One of the ins and outs things we used to say is that once override pop culture with God's culture. And so there's no overriding as such, because there are different levels to this conversation. Music is music. Music would always be music. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to juxtapose the conversation. Let it be clean music. Let it be music that influences people, impacts people actually. Not that I had some conversations recently on the internet about impacts, music and impact, and I'm like, interesting. If you call that impact, then that's very interesting. But we want actual impact, music that will take people's depression actually away, And so we have different expressions. Our expressions were called into the creative circle. So from music to movies to concerts. The concerts we do yearly called the Love and Light concert, and it's intentional why it is Love and Light. December is popularly known for Dirty December, and so instead of dirtying it, we said we want to put Love and Light there. So we find that a lot of Christians don't even have a venue to express, go somewhere and enjoy yourself. God is not against enjoyment. Like, I don't know why people have that mindset. He said, but let your moderation be known unto men. So do these things, but in a moderate form, so, and then you can express. God has given us the grace to express as much as we can, but let your moderation be known. Don't overdo. You understand? So we find that we are creating such avenues for people, to be able to express. A lot of young people that want to do things, but because they don't have platforms, they don't have places to express. They grew up in the church. You see that a lot of times. Sometimes the church, in fact, even some music ministers that are even popular today that are pushed pushed through. We've seen that even in the church they push them out sometimes. So a lot of things like that. But we're in that space. Trying to give avenues to people like that. So we have something called SC music, street church music.
Street church music.
Yeah. So we have an urban line for merchandise, basically to just preach the word also. And stuff like that. So different expressions. So we're doing movies. So what we are actually looking at doing is we're in the space of trying to create an hub, a creative hub for people.
The modern day Mount Zion
kind
of thing.
Pretty much. See it that way.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. That's what I'm asking.
People see things in different ways, but I always tell people that there's no. It's just different expressions. Yeah. There's no modern way. There's no olden way. It's just different expression. Time and season.
Changes.
Places like I said again, it references in the Bible. There are places where there are so many scenarios where I used to reference that there are reasons why things happen for a particular reason. There's a reason why it was Moses that was sent to the children of Israel at a time. There's a reason why it was Jesus Christ that came to die for us at a time. There's a reason why it was Paul that God used as a new generation. There's always a reason for things. And so it's time and season. There's nothing like old and new. Yes, it might feel fresh. It's just time and season and a different means of expression. Because the same way that Christ gathered 5,000 people is different from the same way we gather 5,000 people today. I can just open my phone and sit there in front of people, and 5,000 people are joined into my live session. And I've gathered 5,000 people. And I will preach and speak and do everything, and people will give their lives to Christ. So it doesn't mean that Christ's way was old. It's just the expression and the timing that is different, because we didn't have those resources at the time, but now those resources are available.
That's interesting. From our conversation, I've come to understand that you care deeply about people, and that's from all the work you have done. It's just giving me the light of the new work you're doing. Yeah. Because I know, like, for we that are following you constantly, the direction you're trying to go now is to create men that have impact. Yeah. Is to influence people to want to be impactful men. Get your life together, do it in moderation, like you said. Yeah. Live for Christ. Where do that? The question I'm trying to get from that is, a lot of people want to find purpose but don't know how to go about it. Where do you think finding purpose really come from?
So, I think I put out a post recently that finding purpose comes from understanding who God is, and it's not like just a cliche conversation. It's the reality of what it is, in line of what I do or what I plan to do. I'm starting a lifestyle brand sort of called Uto for Men. Uto for Men is called Uto for Men. Uto is called growth in Igbo. So basically it's growth for men. And I believe so much that in every society that you find yourself, the family is one of the most important units. And God has placed man to be the head of the family. And so if we have good families, if we have men that their heads are correct, like I used to say that your body is like, my body is a nation. And this is no shade, but my body is a country. My head is what controls my hand. It's my head that is telling my hand to move. It's my head that is telling my hand to do all the things it's doing. So if your head is not correct, there's no way your body will function right. And, that's why you see people, And so if the head of a country, if the head of a home is not correct, there's no way the rest of the family will function right. So there's more priority. I know there are a lot of women, things, women conversation, but more priority needs to be given to men in terms of getting them to understand their purpose in life, understanding that your true purpose is found in who God says you are. Your true purpose is found in what you stand as a person, your values, right? What do you see yourself as to your society? Purpose can be a very misinterpreted and misused language. Oh, my purpose. But your purpose is found in, like the verse I referenced, that whatever you do, do it as unto God. Your purpose is found in doing things as unto God. Doing things as unto God. So if my skill is, I know how to handle a camera, I know how to create a microphone, I should do it with the mindset that is unto God. And so everywhere you find yourself, understanding that you have a role to play in this life, And so the way you give yourself to it, excuse me, the way you give yourself to it is where you are able to contribute to a greater cause than self. Where you're able to look at yourself and say, what can I add? What can I contribute to life? What can I contribute to my society, to my family, as little as your family, And so, also for men, grew from a place of helping men to be more productive, helping them to be more skilled, helping them to understand purpose, helping them to be more organized. Like I said, I grew up in a very amazing home. Shout out to my parents, and this is an evidence of why you need to have good families and good parents. Like I said, I've been in gatherings where people are talking about their dads, and like you find a lot of absent dads. In my dating life, almost all the women I ever dated at some point, their fathers were not there. And it touched me a lot because you find that a lot of times where I was in a gathering one time and 90% of the men were in a men's gathering, and 90% of the men, they were saying, oh, their father was this, their father was that. And, I had to come in to say, I'm sorry to burst people's bubble. I had the best, the most amazing dad I've ever seen in this life. And so because of who he was to me, made me a better person. I'm not saying I don't know people that have amazing dads that still become more common, but because of who he was to me, because of the values he instilled in me, because of the values he represented, because of what he stands for, I'm able to see an image that always rings in my mind, always in behind the motive. It just naturally occurred. So I used to do some sort of content sometimes where maybe I'm cleaning my home, I'm organizing stuff, very organized. I put out stuff around organization. And so it's what I saw my dad do. My dad, as young as I was, he used to clean his home. He used to put things in perspective. He used to organize. If you go to his studio, things are pretty much very organized. So it's an image I saw. So you need to print good image for the generation that are coming. You need to print good image for our parents, for our children, rather. And so that's where that drive came from, to be able to create an avenue for people to learn.
Yeah, since we're speaking about the drive, you recently spoke with the development school, Africa, and Sheung Olagunju, and you were talking about young people having the intention to change, but turning intention to impact has always been the struggle.
Yeah.
So how do we correct that? If you have the intention, but you cannot really act on it.
So I like that question a lot, because intention is very good, but circumstances always change.
Life happens by the seconds.
Circumstances change intentions a lot of times. We could have good intentions, but some kind of sakpa will hit you like this. Some kind of situation go happen and your intention will be tossed. But you know what? Like I said, and it's not cliche, it's always a reference. God is your driving force. When I was younger, Yahoo in quotes, that's what we used to call it. I started to...
It was prominent.
Prominent. I started to pick up guys I used to do release, and I was very computer savage. I was very computer savvy. I think not savage. Very computer savvy. I knew how to use, of course, you can tell that I knew how to use the computer a lot. And so I had friends that suggested, people around me that suggested that, but I didn't even do eBay last one, you go, they collect things. But you know what? I always look back. I didn't even know. I was just a young guy that, carried.
And you had the fashion, you had the look, you had everything. You had the height,
I could use, at some point, when I was even in uni, at some point, those boys, I said, they'll come and meet me in my room and say, I'll buy post forge signature. I'm sorry, I can't do such. So I used to tell myself something, and I used to say that I have a story to tell, and it's not by doing Yahoo Yahoo. It's very, very rare and hard to be on platforms like this. Yahoo boy, very rare and hard. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but what do you want to say? What story do you want to tell? How do you want to say it in your mind or mind that you will not feel one type of way? Do you understand? So you have a good story to tell, and it's not by doing Yahoo Yahoo. We have a place we are going to, and so your destination or your journey, you need to make it clean. It's a struggle, but in every day, the Bible says that says that a man that is diligent. Just keep being diligent. Keep doing the things that you know how to do best. Keep showing up. It's tough. It's not like it's easy. Yesterday I was feeling, I almost even say, maybe I should call you and cancel this podcast. But
thank
God,
I was
tired. And I'm like, I just straight. I just said I just finished some events. I'm
Yeah.
just tired, but you have to just keep showing up. You have to keep doing what you have to do. Your intentions might be good, and sometimes the results might not even show. But it takes us back to what I said. It's time and seasons. It's
Have to
time and
continue
seasons.
plans.
And one of the biggest lessons that my dad, taught me was that you can't plant a seed and it's turn into a tree the next day. If I put a seed inside the ground and tomorrow I come back and it's now a 20-foot tree, I know it's down in witchcraft. There's something else there.
Everything
There's
takes
a
time.
process.
So everything.
There's a process, and when a tree grows, it doesn't just grow up; it grows down. So it solidifies your foundation, it solidifies your firmness. It gives you more rigidity. When things come at you in those days of trouble, you will not just be able to, you will not just fall off like that, because, and it's the truth, when there are some trees that if they are not well founded, the roots are not entered into the ground well. When wind comes, just take them off. But you see a tree that has a strong, rooting, it stays firm. And so your intentions might be right, and you find a lot of situations where you're thinking about this thing, this thing I did, she cannot just do another way like this, or we cannot just do it this way, or we cannot just run them this way. But just stay true to yourself. Like I said, the most important thing is the heart. Make your heart right.
Since we're talking about staying true to oneself and staying true to heart and all, what's the weirdest or most surprising message you've gotten on this journey as a young man, expressing yourself the way you express yourself and be firmly rooted in God?
What kind of message? That question, you need to reframe it well, because I used to receive some very, very odd messages. I received odd messages, but it just depends. What kind of message are you talking?
Like work related, personal life related, like word messages.
Personal life. I received things. There was a year that I even put it on Twitter and it trended. Somebody was just sending me nude stuff, sending me weird messages. Yeah, nice. Yeah, this one. And the person was doing it with so much strength. Like
the intentionality was crazy.
It was that's the intentionality we are talking about. I was doing for greater things. I'll block you. You would open another account, use people's profiles, send message,
the same person.
send nudes, send videos, send voice notes, send everything, and it was crazy, But thank God that
my question is,
we're delivered from that.
You were delivered. That's obvious. That's obvious. That's why we are here. But my question is, how do you help somebody that's going through that? Like, what are the things you think helped you?
I think in helping, right, one of the most important things is self-awareness. In as much as there are some people that you want to help, they don't want to be helped. And like it's just the case of the blind guy, the beautiful gates in the Bible. His own was just give me money. I beg, don't even stress my life. Just give me what you get for me today, make a chop. And you find a lot of people, that's how they are. They just want to be helped. But once you can communicate with your spirit and say, you know what, and I've had a lot of conversation with people like that, especially in terms of money, because most times people see you and they say, this person good deal, right? You get all the money for this life, but everybody is on a journey. Like the richest person you think that after I learn a lot on a couple of things and levels in life. The richest person probably has debt.
Rich people don't have money lying around. That's the biggest misconception people have about rich money.
Have debt. They don't even have money lying around, like you said.
Rich people don't have money lying around.
A lot of things are happening.
A lot of responsibility happening at the same time.
So why do you want to become and like I used to say, just mentality. A lot of misinformed people are moving around, especially in Nigeria. There's a young man I used to talk about that used to send me DMs. I've never met him before. I don't know him, but he used to talk to me about his relationship, right? And I see it genuinely in this conversation that this person is not just trying to chat me up. This person actually needs help.
Wants to change.
Wants some level of understanding. Today is him and his girlfriend, they're having issues. Tomorrow they are breaking up there. And so I have genuine conversations with him, to guide him, to help him. I have young people like that around me that I talk to once in a while, about life and stuff like that. So if I communicate with your heart and I know that, okay, this person wants to really change, then I press in, but some people don't want to be helped, and that's the truth, and you can't help everybody.
No, Jesus was not able to save everybody.
You can't.
I don't all of us know that. So I don't think anybody is going to be able to save everybody.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about you mentoring people about relationship, We like how beautiful you make your relationship look
Thank
to
you,
us
thank you,
online.
thank you. See how beautiful you make it look to you.
Yeah, it's beautiful to look
It is
at.
that
We are
beautiful.
not inside.
Even inside, it is beautiful. My wife is here, so you know that
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
we know it's beautiful. That's why we want to ask the question we want to
Yeah.
ask. Like, how do you manage everything together as a young man and still create time for that
Yeah,
to make it
so
work as well as it's working?
I mean, it's always easier said than done, but there's a lot of commitment, that goes into relationships. I think that the most beautiful thing that can ever happen to you as a man, as a woman, is getting the right partner. Knowing that this person did for me and I did for this person, and I've seen that so many times with my partner, and we're not on a level of and one of the problems that I find with love is competition. The man is trying to prove, the woman is trying to prove. It's just really two people trying to get things done. Two people that marriages actually do work, and there's value in it. So
Yeah, that thing you said is very important because I feel like negative media don't need no promotion. You need
It
a lot
doesn't
of
need-
money to promote positive media
You
all
do.
over the world. It's crazy how that works.
Unfortunately, what we have seen over and over and over
Like
again.
we've seen it over and over again.
I'll
Anything
just-
negative will just fly itself.
Yeah.
You don't need
So
any
and
money.
even people, and that's why as Christians, as people, as human beings, we need to also drive that narrative more and make people see positive as good. Even as Christians as brands sometimes, and so that's one thing that I really appreciate us as Street Church about is we are very careful about how we navigate through everything that we do. We always consciously say it. When I was doing some brainstorming with the team recently, and one person on the team was just driving at how we could do some things, just to spice things up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not in for that. I'm not a controversial person. I like to play it clean and calm.
Yeah.
If people take it as controversy,
That's fine.
it's up to them. But from my own perspective, I'm going to do everything within the confines of what I believe my values as much as possible, and not, go.
Since
go
we're speaking
overboard.
about controversy, what's one thing you are most afraid people might misunderstand about you and your work? With the pace at which everything is going.
So misunderstand. I don't think I get that vibe a lot. I mean, of course, the most vibe that you probably get is, oh, the guy is calm, is good looking. If you get a shower for body,
So that's what you feel like
fashion.
the misunderstanding.
These are things that have always existed, But
Yeah.
even my wife too, before she met me, she
That's
was
her-
like, this boy is very vain. She cannot be friends with him. She cannot, And so
But
people.
speaking with
that's-
me
that's
too,
like-
when I got
that's-
let me just be sincere. Me too, when I got to your page yesterday, and
I
I
was
was
like,
like,
this boy they do street church, so
no, it's not. That's not the idea I had. I just had an idea like, Tunde will know what's up now.
I
That's
know
just the
what's
idea.
up, bruv. I know what's up.
But you
But-
very rooted in.
Yeah, you have to be rooted. I mean, you don't have to. One of our favorite Bible verses in the Bible, and I've said Bible verses a lot, but one of my favorite Bible verses in the Bible where Christ was saying that the children of the world are smart. They are more cunning and smarter in their ways than the children of light. And the reason why I referenced it is because we have to also be smart. You have to understand the doings of this world. You have to understand how things happen, how things work. I find that a lot of people don't understand how things work. They are one-sided.
Yeah.
So because of that, they don't have a full view of so many things. But you have to understand how things work. So sometimes we're outside. I mean, I work with brands that necessarily don't equate with, church
and
everywhere. But there are brands that add value to everybody's
but
day
do
life,
that.
So
you need to do your
you
job.
have to do your job and move. Yeah.
And so, what's the most radical idea that you consider these days? That because you said we have to be smart, just like what you
Yeah.
said. What's some of the radical ideas that you're considering these days, and you're feeling like, with this being in line with the things we've done?
Unfortunately, my brain will take radical. I'm more of a creative guy, so I think about creative ways to express things.
Okay.
So I think about things that people are probably not. The first thing when I think about things, I think about what somebody hasn't done before, and so this is my journey of creating. I start to think in my head about what has this person, what has not been done before, what has eyes not seen before, and then once I pinpoint some things in my mind. I go and look for those things, and I see that okay, eyes have probably seen this before. People have done this before. Okay, but what can I do to make it better?
Oh, that's okay.
How can I extend it? How can I see it from a different perspective? And so most times when we think about things, like for instance, the creative hub that we're thinking about doing, something that exists already, but now this is a creative hub solely for in quotes, Christian creatives, clean content creatives, like we would like to say it. Like what you guys are doing here, which is really amazing.
Yeah, thank you. As you're talking about clean content creatives, how do you, as Street Church, stay able to hold on to the core of what you do in a very digital culture? It's very easy when you go on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy for you. I mean, my own timeline is very streamlined. I don't see a lot of negative stuff. I keep saying it to people. If I give you my Instagram to scroll, you won't see a lot of negative things. Maybe that's why I don't follow both. You just follow one of the people that share the news. That they're always posting about negative news. Just follow one. So my timeline is. But how do you people stay within this pressure? You have to stay relevant. You have to keep it clean. Yeah. How do you manage that?
So you have to stay. I think it's staying centered with your values. I mean, there are days where, there were days where my team they've created, things that I'm like,
this is nice, but it's cool. Not what we are.
Because the world where we live inside now,
things fly.
People move things quick, and unfortunately, it's even Christian, and they'll forget that there's love. People judge you anyhow nowadays.
I think people put more pressure on we that want to identify as Christians. They want to judge you more than other people.
So, as it were, because they feel like you're trying to uphold a certain type of status, and they don't know that all of us are just trying to be better people, working out our salvation in trembling and fear.
I think that's one thing I used to say. Even businesses, everybody's just trying.
Everybody's perfect. Me, I'm a very my wife, my friends, they know me. I'm a very open person. I like you feel maybe you offend me like this. Because the guy said we should do 7 times 77. Maybe you offend me like the 7th or the 8th time. That's when I cannot take anger at you. But I'm very forgiving. I'm very, open-ended. I try to see reasons why people might have done. Sometimes people can be just asked outrightly just foolish in quotes. But I try to, open my mind. And so in a world that we live in, you have to be very careful with how you narrate things. You have to think about it from all the angles. Okay, if I put it, I remember specifically, I think about when they released Squid Games years back. I was personally the one that did that devotion that morning, because my friend Icon used to do most of it because he's more of a good writer. And so I did the Squid Game, triangle or box, and I can't remember the passage now, to be honest, but that till date, you can look at our page, that's the highest likes and highest comments, highest engagements we've ever had, because some people saw it as controversial. People died in this movie, this one, that. This they cut off apostles' head in the Bible. So people can be very judgmental and stuff, but at the end of the day, trying to understand the values and staying within the values of what you believe. So you would not go extreme. I wouldn't say because I'm trying to use slangs. Now there's certain words that I wouldn't use. There's certain things that I wouldn't say. There's certain things that they are off the table. So just understanding where you stand as a person and your values, and also understanding that, like I say, motive is the driving force. So if my motive is clean, in as much as, I want to trend, I want to be part of the trend that is going on, the first thing I always ask my team is, whatever you're doing, what's the value in it? What's the motive behind it? Why are you doing what you're doing? Yes, you can jump on a trend, but the motive just needs to be right.
Yeah, thank you for sharing who you are with us.
Thank you for having me.
It gives me a whole new perspective about a lot of things.
I get that a lot.
Yeah, it gives me a whole new perspective about a lot of things. And more about you too, but about life itself. You give me a whole new perspective. And thank you once again for being who you are. Thank you for being present and being conscious in a generation where most of us get carried away. Thank you for being everything I are. So we like to end this on a simple tradition we're adding. The last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who they are leaving the question for.
Interesting.
So the question that I left for you is going to be what I will be reading out for you now. So after that, you need to leave a question.
I'll leave my question
for the next guest. Yeah, you have to. So the question that was left for you: was actually left by a doctor, Sha.
Ah,
So
interesting.
the question is, okay, it's actually simple.
Actually, you don't need to add to the
No,
question.
I have to put his name. He didn't write his name, so I want you to write your name. So that's why I'm putting it on it. When was the last time you checked your blood pressure and sugar?
So how do you check? If my watch checks my blood pressure now.
Oh, it was a very interesting conversation I had with Dr. Shino. I think
Yeah.
you should watch the episode. I was like you too. I was like, I do sport. I don't need to check it.
No, I actually checked because I checked. I probably checked last month or 2 months ago thereabouts.
So you check yourself regularly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably did check.
Okay.
I'm very in quotes health conscious.
Okay.
Somewhat health conscious. Yeah. So
Okay. Oh, another question was left for you now. Just now. So
don't
it's
they
very-
add this one?
No, no, this one is very interesting. It's not me. It's just part of what we do here. Based on your Christian view, that's how the
Mhm.
question goes. It said, based on your Christian view, how did you know your wife is the one for you?
Uh-uh.
Some
They
people
just
say
send
you
this
have to
question to
pray.
you.
Yeah. Some people say you have to pray.
Person just said this question to you.
Some say you have to pray. Others say as long as you find someone, you do know. So how do you know based on your own Christian view?
You
Because
find
you shared a
find
lot
someone.
of inciting things about life and being a Christian with
Yeah.
us today. So how did you know?
So I think that at the end of the day, it's always a journey, finding a partner, because it's really about an intuition. Sometimes you never can know people finish, never can know things finish. People always change. So you can want to meet somebody now on the level of, oh, this person has this person is this, and tomorrow that person is not that person anymore. So I think that values are extremely important to me. So where your value stands, also your heart for people. These were the things I saw, in my wife. That she has a heart for people. My wife taught me how to give more. I mean, almost everybody that is around her is close to her. She buys birthday gifts for them. She's sending money to this. In fact, my wife spends maybe 70% or 60% of her earnings on
Helping
giving,
people.
on helping people. She's very passionate. Our security man recently in the house, she said she just noticed that they used to sleep on the floor. She went to go and buy bed for them. So someone that has the heart for people definitely have the heart for me. I was recently sick. And I was like, if my wife now asked for me, she could just leave me, just day by day, But I saw the value of, having someone that really cares, So I think that those values are important. I mean, of course, loving God is extremely important. Having the heart for God, understanding that God is the center of who we are as a person, and then having other values. The rest can be worked on,
Thank you, Tunde, for doing this with me. Thank you for
having me.
Thank you for showing us how to be present and how to be a fine young man while doing that. So this is the point where you leave a question
So
for
my
the next
question
guest.
that came to my mind is very generic, but